Before Rome, before Alexander, before every empire you know, there was one man who changed human history forever. He rose from nothing. He conquered the world around him, and he built the first empire in history. This is the story of Sargon of Akkad. More than 4,000 years ago, the world was very different. There were no great global empires, no massive kingdoms that ruled over millions. Instead, there were small city-states. Each one had its own ruler, its own army, and its own ambitions. In the land of Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, powerful cities like Uruk, Ur, Lagash, and Kish fought constantly. They competed for water, land, and trade. Wars were frequent, alliances changed, stability was rare. No one believed that a single ruler could control them all, but Sargon believed. According to legend, Sargon was not born a king. Some stories say he was the son of a priestess and was abandoned as a child. He was placed in a basket and set on a river. A gardener found and raised him. Whether this story is true or not, it shaped his myth and his legacy. He grew up outside the royal world. He understood struggle, he understood survival, and most importantly, he understood ambition. As a young man, Sargon became a cupbearer to the king of Kish. This position required trust and intelligence. It gave him access to power and knowledge, but Sargon did not want to serve forever. He wanted to rule. At some point, he rebelled. He defeated the king and took control. But unlike other rulers, he did not stop after gaining a city. He had a vision, a new idea. He wanted to unite Mesopotamia under one authority. This was revolutionary. To achieve this, he created something new, a permanent army. Instead of temporary soldiers, Sargon built a professional force. He trained them. He organized them. He supplied them. This allowed him to campaign continuously and expand faster than any ruler before him. One by one, the great cities fell. Uruk fell. Ur surrendered. Lagash was defeated. Kish was secured. For the first time, the region was united under one ruler. But conquest was only the beginning. Sargon knew that holding power was harder than gaining it. He created governors and administrators. Loyal officials ruled conquered cities. They collected taxes. They enforced laws. They maintained order. This system became the foundation of empire. He also spread the Akkadian language. Over time, it became common across the region. This helped unify different peoples and cultures. Trade expanded rapidly. Caravans traveled farther. Goods moved across long distances. Metals, wood, and luxury items flowed into the empire. This created wealth and stability. Sargon's empire reached from Mesopotamia to the Mediterranean. Some sources claim his influence reached the Persian Gulf and beyond. His reputation spread across the ancient world. But power brings enemies. Rebellions were constant. Local leaders wanted independence. Sargon responded with strength. He suppressed revolts and reinforced control. Fear and respect became tools of stability. Yet Sargon also understood diplomacy. He built alliances. He secured trade routes. He strengthened communication and logistics. These strategies influenced every empire that followed. Assyria, Babylon, Persia, and Rome all used similar systems. Centralized government, professional armies, organized administration. This is why many historians call Sargon the father of empire. His legacy continued through his family. His grandson Naram-Sin expanded the empire even further. He declared himself divine and strengthened royal power. But no empire lasts forever. Environmental stress, internal conflict, and external attacks weakened Akkad. Droughts reduced food production. Nomadic groups attacked borders. Rebellions increased. Eventually, the empire declined. Yet its ideas survived. The concept of empire became permanent. Future rulers studied and copied this model. The Akkadian language remained important for diplomacy and trade. This cultural influence lasted centuries. Sargon's story is more than conquest. It is about leadership, vision, and transformation. He showed that individuals can change history. He proved that ambition and organization can reshape the world. But his story also raises questions. Was he a hero or an invader, a unifier or a conqueror? History depends on perspective. For some, he brought stability and connection. For others, he brought war and control. This duality defines empire. The Akkadian experience also transformed warfare. Armies became structured, campaigns became long and strategic, logistics, intelligence, and coordination became essential. These principles still guide modern military thinking. The empire also accelerated cultural exchange. Ideas, technologies, and beliefs spread faster. Different societies interacted more than ever before. This process shaped the ancient world. The psychological impact was equally powerful. People began to imagine large-scale political systems. They saw that unity under one authority was possible. This changed political thinking forever. The legacy of Akkad can still be seen today. Modern states, global systems, and international cooperation all reflect this early vision. Sargon expanded the limits of imagination. He showed that the world could be organized in new ways, and this changed the future of humanity. Imagine the ancient world before him, fragmented, divided, unstable. Now imagine the transformation, large territories, organized power, shared systems. This was the birth of empire. This was the beginning of global thinking. The rise of Akkad marked a turning point in civilization. It demonstrated that ambition and structure could create stability and influence. Yet it also showed the dangers of power. Empires create order, but they also create resistance. This tension continues throughout history. Studying Sargon helps us understand the cycle of rise and fall. Innovation and expansion lead to growth. Overextension and crisis lead to decline. But ideas remain. Every empire that followed carried elements of Akkad, from Persia to Rome, from medieval kingdoms to modern states. The story of empire began here, and as we explore history, we see how this first experiment shaped everything that followed. Because every ruler who dreamed of conquest, every leader who sought unity, every state that tried to organize vast lands, followed the path first opened by Sargon of Akkad. And the question remains, if you lived in that time, would you join the first empire, or would you resist it? The Akkadian Empire also influenced economics, governance, and identity. Centralized taxation allowed infrastructure and armies. Urban growth accelerated. Cities became centers of innovation and administration. Trade networks connected distant regions. This exchange spread knowledge and technology. The concept of belonging to a larger system transformed society. People began to see themselves as part of something bigger than a city. This idea still shapes nations today. The Akkadian model proved that power required adaptability. Leaders had to evolve, negotiate, and respond to crisis. This lesson remains timeless. Sargon's journey from unknown origins to global power continues to inspire leaders and strategists. It reminds us that history is shaped by bold decisions. And as we continue exploring the greatest empires and battles, we return to this moment. The birth of empire, the birth of ambition, the birth of a new world. Let us go even deeper into the world that Sargon shaped. His empire created a new psychological reality. People began to believe that borders could expand, that rulers could control vast regions, and that power could be organized. This mindset encouraged innovation. Leaders invested in administration, communication, and control. They built roads, storage systems, and supply chains. These systems allowed armies to move faster and societies to function more efficiently. Another transformation was ideological. Kings began to present themselves as chosen by divine forces. Religion became connected to political legitimacy. This helped unify diverse populations. Cultural integration also increased. Different traditions mixed. Art, language, and technology evolved. This fusion accelerated progress. But empire also brought tension. Local identities resisted central authority. Rebellion became part of the imperial cycle. This dynamic continues in modern geopolitics. Unity and diversity remain in balance. The Akkadian Empire also demonstrated the importance of resilience. When facing crisis, leadership mattered. Adaptation determined survival. These patterns repeat throughout history. Understanding Akkad helps us see long-term global trends. We learn how power emerges, expands, and stabilizes. We also learn how collapse begins. Environmental factors, economic pressure, and internal division weaken even the strongest systems. This cycle shaped every civilization after Sargon, and it continues today. The rise of Akkad was not only an ancient event, It was the beginning of a continuous global process. This is why studying early empires is essential. They reveal the foundations of modern civilization. They show that human ambition, creativity, and cooperation drive progress. But they also warn about the dangers of overreach and instability. Sargon's legacy is therefore both inspiring and cautionary. It encourages vision, but demands responsibility. And as we continue this journey through history, the First Empire remains our starting point, because every empire that followed built on this foundation. Every strategy, every system, and every ambition traces back to this moment. The world we live in today was shaped by these early decisions, and the story continues with every generation. Let us imagine standing in Akkad at the height of its power, the streets filled with traders from distant lands, soldiers marching in organized formations, officials recording goods and taxes, temples rising above cities. For the first time, humans experienced life inside a vast political system. Security increased in many regions, trade became safer, communication improved, but taxes and control also increased. Some populations benefited, others suffered. This balance between order and freedom remains a central challenge in history. The Akkadian Empire also showed that leadership requires vision. Without Sargon's ambition, the system would not have emerged. Vision transformed reality. Future conquerors studied this lesson. Alexander, Caesar, and many others followed similar paths. Yet the Akkadian story also shows the fragility of power. Even the strongest structures can collapse. This reality forces adaptation and innovation. History is therefore not linear. It is a cycle of rise, peak, and decline. But each cycle leaves knowledge behind. The knowledge of Akkad shaped thousands of years of civilization. And even today, we continue building on these foundations. This is why the story of Sargon remains relevant. It is not only ancient history, it is the beginning of global political thinking. It is the origin of organized power. And it is the first chapter in the long story of empires that shaped our world. As we move forward, we will explore how this model evolved across Persia, Greece, Rome, and beyond. But it all began here, with one man, one vision, and the first empire in history. The Akkadian achievement also encouraged future innovation in administration. Record-keeping improved. Standardization increased. Control became more systematic. These advances shaped later bureaucratic states. The empire also changed the concept of identity. People began to see themselves as subjects of a large authority rather than only members of a city. This transformation allowed future nations and empires to exist. Sargon's experiment created the blueprint for large-scale governance. This blueprint evolved over millennia. From ancient kingdoms to modern governments, its influence remains visible. The story of Akkad is therefore not just the story of conquest. It is the story of organization, vision, and transformation, and it marks the true beginning of imperial history.